My name is Jackie Palfi, and this is the Cycle of Success podcast. I am certain that you can make life more than just a living. You can achieve more by doing less. My mission is to help you create abundance in all areas of life without you burning out. So what are you waiting for? All we have is right now. Hello, Arienne. Thank you for being here and welcome on to the Cycle of Success podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
I'm so excited to be talking with you. For everyone, a quick introduction about our guest today. Arienne is actually a doctor. She is a physical therapist that specializes in orthopedics and pelvic health. And she also has developed over the years through her own story a particular passion to helping moms with everything that goes with bridging the gap between traditional healthcare and also their fitness and activity goals. So Arienne, I would like to just turn it over to you and tell us a couple of words about this introduction, about who you are and what you do, and really let's welcome you here officially.
Okay, so as you mentioned, I am a physical therapist. I have been in the healthcare field for about 10 years. I've had my doctorate for 5, and I have always worked with sports and orthopedics. So my whole background really up until maybe 4 years ago was orthopedics, sports injuries, and I've worked with anything from your high school athlete to professional sports. But I gave birth to my first daughter in 2016, and I was incontinent for 8 months. And that was really hard for me because I was an active individual. I was a physical therapist who had this idea that I knew what I needed to do to prevent all of the crazy stuff that happens after you have a baby. And I really not only was kind of thrown for a loop, but I didn't have the guidance that I needed. And the support that I needed after having my baby. And so it really was me rehabbing myself and kind of figuring it out and doing a deep dive into women's health. And then I decided during that time that this is an area of our healthcare system that is just really poorly addressed. And if this is something that I was going through as an active, well-versed woman who, has this background that I have, then what are every other woman in the world feeling, who's had kids?
Totally.
And so I wanted to change that.
I really agree to that because, and I must admit, as we got to know each other and you talked about what it is that you do as work, it was one of the things that really stuck with me because personally, after giving birth as well, even though it was a C-section, I have gone through many things that I wish beforehand I would have known of. And as you said, that you think that there's a huge missing link in the healthcare system of women to prepare for birth before, during, but also afterwards. So right. I'm so excited to talk with you about your knowledge and share with all the other mothers or sometimes to be mothers, what they can do to stay in perfect health. So you told me that, or you just told us that you realized this missing link and that you kind of had to heal yourself. What do you think is the missing link? Like, what is it that we should know that we don't?
So I've tried to kind of whittle this down over the last few years to really figure out what that one thing is, but it's such a complex issue. I think it starts with the healthcare system because there's just not a lot of education. We are, especially in America, we are reactive medical providers. We're not preventative providers. So we're not really having discussions with patients until a problem really arises. And I've had a lot of clients who have come to me that have told me that they pushed for PT or physio, and that their doctor told them that if it gets worse, then we'll send you to a physical therapist. But why are we waiting for something to get so bad that then we'll intervene? Why are we not being proactive about this? So I think from the healthcare side, it's not educating patients on, what is normal, what's not normal, when to seek help, and what the resources are that are out there. But also, we're kind of in a society in a changing time now where our grandmothers and, some of our mothers were not exercising and being as active the way that we're being active today. So when we go in for our 6-week checkup after having a baby, they look to make sure everything is generally healed, and they clear you to resume your normal activities. But, 50 years ago, normal activities was doing the laundry and cooking dinner for the kids and our husbands, and maybe going on a walk around the park. But today at 6 weeks, moms are trying to go back to CrossFit or boot camp classes or yoga and Pilates. And that's great, but we're not having discussions about, what are the markers that need to be in place for me to successfully return to that. And on top of that, we've got moms and sisters and friends saying like, hey girl, you're going to pee on yourself for the next 60 years. Like, good luck to you. You just can't run anymore. You can't jump on the trampoline anymore. And I don't think that is, as a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old mom, that is not very reassuring. Like, I don't want to hear that as a 30-year-old that I'm destined to pee on myself if I want to be active. So I think it's, it's the healthcare, but it's also the surrounding mentality that we have of like, oh, well, that's normal. This is just part of motherhood, welcome to the club. So I think the more that we have these kinds of conversations, the more normalized these discussions become. And then we can really start to deep dive into how do we address this stuff.
And what I also really hear you say, I love it so much what you're saying. Two things that I think stand out tremendously is one, having a better understanding of our body, of why it is important to go back slowly, and understanding what a huge transformation the physical body was through actually. Right. But also the other thing that we have to redefine normal. It can't be true that we're still 50 years back in time. So what is normal for the average mother today? As you said, most people, they want to go back to CrossFit. And I remember so clearly after I was checked, I'm really finding myself while you were talking, because after my checkup, I was like, I can go out and run my 10Ks again. And I had a C-section. Right. So you're completely right. We are just not being informed right about what it is our body has been going through and what it is capable of doing. So I'm really interested, like for women, let's say that it's women who are already mothers. They might be new moms, but they might also have given birth long time ago. What would you say are some typical pains or challenges or red flags that they should be watching out for so that it doesn't go into something chronic or something really hurtful?
Right. So first of all, it's never too late to start. So whether you're 4 months postpartum or you're 14 years postpartum, if you're having issues or if something doesn't feel right, or you feel weakness, incontinence, heaviness, pain with sex, any of that stuff, you should get checked out. And if your OB or your practitioner, your doctor, your physician doesn't give you the clarity that you're looking for, then you should get checked out again by someone else. Because I think that is also part of the problem, is that we fail to validate women and their concerns. You know, when we tell women, oh, hey, this is normal, you're going to pee on yourself. It's, you know, we think that we're being helpful by telling that to our fellow mother. But it's not helpful when we're looking for solutions. I always recommend proactivity before anything else. So if you're experiencing something at your 6-week checkup, discuss that with your doctor. So that could be anything from still difficulty with bowel movements or voiding urine. So pain, burning, tingling, some of that stuff can happen if you've had an episiotomy or if you've had tearing. If you are experiencing heaviness in the vagina or the rectum. So some people will describe it as, I feel like there's a softball down there, or something is falling out every time that I sit down on the toilet, or it gets worse throughout the day. If you've resumed having sex and it's painful, if you can't feel what you would have been able to feel prior to delivery or prior to pregnancy. So there's a lack of sensation there. Or if you're feeling some kind of burning, itching, tearing, something like that. Those are all things that you want to discuss with your doctor.
What if it's a C-section I just want to add that on. What would be some typical complaints in that term?
Yeah, so C-section moms can experience some of the same symptoms. So if you had a C-section after you labored for hours and hours and hours, you may still be predisposed to some of those pelvic floor issues, like incontinence, like just general weakness of those muscles, because one, you've gone 9 months with a baby pressing down on your pelvic floor. But two, if you actually labored at all through that process, you can still be creating a lot of that downward pressure and experience some of those things. But with C-section moms, aside from the pelvic floor itself, it's pain along the scar, itching or burning of the scar. If your scar feels very stuck, so if you try to play with it or move it around and it doesn't feel like it's moving, obviously signs of infection. And then also, as you're returning to exercise, if you're feeling pulling, pain, whether that's sharp or dull around that incision point with exercise, then that's something that you also want to get checked out. And a lot of times with C-sections, it's just that the scar itself is kind of adhered down to the tissue underneath it. So if you think of a scar like having tree roots, as the scar on the surface is healing, it's kind of creating these roots into the skin and muscle and tissues beneath it. And so when you go into certain movements, whether it's rotation or extension, and you feel that pulling, sometimes it's just a matter of mobilizing that tissue. But it's something that you want to be aware of and that you want to take the necessary steps to correct.
And would you say that that is only something that is possible with a like a professional, or could you start at home as well with some simple activities?
Yeah, so you could start at home. So with C-section scars especially, one of the things that you can start with is, I tell patients all the time, play with your scar. And there's really no wrong way to play with a scar. But as long as it's healed and there's no open wound still, rolling the incision, so pinching and pulling at that incision point, kind of rolling it under your fingers. You can do cross friction above and below the scar. All of those are helpful to just kind of start to mobilize that tissue and prevent those little collagen fibers from adhering down to the tissue underneath it. And then, if it progresses and it's just not getting any better, a lot of women will either say that they don't feel much when they are playing with the scar, or it feels excruciating, or it just kind of feels bizarre. Because, a lot of times you do lose sensation there. And then, of course, you want to look at core strength, and that plays directly into pelvic floor strength. So remember, with C-sections, you're cutting through your abdominal muscles. And that, for women who want to get back to the gym or want to get back to some kind of running or activity, can be really hard, because you get cleared like you did, and you think that you're ready. And then when you actually start, things don't feel the same. So it is a gradual, how can I slowly start to build that foundation back? Because things are different. You've stretched, the tone of your muscles is different, the strength of your muscles is different. And those are all things that we need to start rebuilding. That is just, we're missing that in the healthcare system. We take care of the baby, but after delivery, mom kind of gets the boot. So
you tend to forget yourself because you don't know how important it is. And what I also found was, as I started, running again, I think this is normal for many people who are active, that they are used to push through pains, and because this is a pain that you don't really know about, you think, okay, I push through it, it is probably normal, it will get stronger, and in the long term it actually get worse. So if this is the case for women out there, how do they know the difference of a pain that they should, push through to get stronger, or when it's a red flag and you have to kind of stop?
So generally what I tell my clients, and this is, kind of case by case dependent, because some people are really good at identifying, and explaining what their pain feels like. And some people don't really know how to articulate what they're feeling. So I always try to compare it to general muscle soreness. So if I've gone to the gym for the first time in, 2 months, and I do a workout, and the next day I feel like I don't want to get out of bed because I'm really sore muscularly, that's probably delayed onset muscle soreness, right? Mm-hmm. So, that is just a byproduct of me not using those muscles for the last 2 months, in the way that I'm currently now using them. So if you're feeling that general muscle soreness and fatigue that you would feel after any, tough workout, I consider that pretty normal. If you're feeling, a dull achiness for you, if, you're running, if we use that as an example, if you're running and you feel this kind of dull achiness in your low back, when you hit mile 2, and that dull achiness just does not go away, and now you're sitting at dinner thinking about your back bothering you, that is, maybe a yellow flag where, okay, I might have overdone it a little bit, and now I need to kind of circle back and reset. If now you've run through that dull ache in your back, and now tomorrow morning you really can't get out of bed because your back hurts so badly, and not in the, I'm going to ease myself onto the toilet seat kind of soreness, then, now I know, I'm not ready for 3 miles yet. And I need to reassess where I'm at, and why is my low back bothering me when I run? So if you're someone who's always experienced back pain when you run, chances are you probably should have gotten it addressed prior to getting pregnant. But if this is a new symptom for you, then chances are, in most cases, if you're in the postpartum period, there's kind of a discrepancy in the strength of your core, right? Because we use a lot of core to run. And so, that would be a good time to sit down with a physical therapist, or, even if you don't feel like you need, physio per se, but to sit down with a personal trainer who deals with pre and postpartum women, and say, this is what I'm experiencing, and how can I strengthen these muscles that are going to stabilize my hips and my spine so that I can run without pain. So if your pain is limiting you, then, or if your pain is sustained even when you're not partaking in your activity, aside from that, normal muscle soreness, then then it's something that you want to be on top of, because the last thing you want is to not address it and push through. And now you're not running, and you're, you don't want to lift the baby now because your back hurts. And now you've, kind of opened up a whole another can of worms.
Wow, it's so valuable information. I'm getting super many insights, and I also feel like I wish I would have known so many of these things, so I can imagine what people listening are thinking as well. This is such an important work. So again, thank you for being here, Arienne. I'm so happy that we are able to share this information. Another thing that I would like to address, which I think can get really confusing for women after, but probably also during the pregnancy, is the hormone balance. Like, my hormone balance went completely crazy after giving birth. And sometimes I found myself sad not being able to come out of it. Other times I was overly happy. So in terms of the hormone balance, would you like to say a couple of words about that? And maybe if you could give some tips to how to deal with it, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So, hormones in general is not my specialty, but I know, the basics, because this is the clientele that I deal with. So, when I've heard in readings that when you're pregnant, it is your progesterone and your estrogen levels are the equivalent of having several hundred birth control pills, so they're just way, way up there. And after you have a baby, they plummet. So your estrogen and your progesterone, shortly after giving birth, is just like tanking. And your oxytocin and your prolactin, especially if you're breastfeeding, are going to go up. So the oxytocin kind of offsets some of that tank of the progesterone and the estrogen, where you feel this like rush, you have a new baby, you're running on adrenaline. But as those things start to level out a little bit more, you're lacking sleep. You may or may not be eating well. And so, there's so much fluctuation in those first few weeks with the hormones that it's very normal to feel, this kind of crazy sense of one day you just don't want to get out of bed and you don't want to be around anyone. And the next day you're just so excited to have a new little nugget to hug and snuggle with all day. With that said, some of the ways to, it's hard to say that you can combat it in the sense that, we can't change hormonally what's happening. But one of the ways that we can help to deal with that is, so I know this is such a cliche saying, and I hated when people told this to me, sleep when the baby sleeps, because all of us as moms are like, no, I need to get stuff done. I have to, load the dishwasher. I need to do a load of laundry. I want to take a shower. And they call it sleep banking. So, in those first few months, you might not be getting much sleep at night, where the baby's nursing, where you're feeding every 2 hours. And that can be really hard because lack of sleep, you increase cortisol, which, increases your stress. You crave sugar, which again, you're going to get those like spikes and drops in your blood sugar levels, which also does not make us feel very good. So if you can take, even if it's not every single day when the baby naps, but if you can, once or twice a week, take an hour while the baby's napping and lay down and rest. They say that you're essentially getting your sleep beforehand. So you're kind of evening the field a little bit. When you're losing some of that sleep at night, you're kind of recouping some of that at some point throughout the week. So there's that. And then also nutrition. So high fat, high protein diet, not skimping on your calories, especially if you're breastfeeding. And then, limiting, I'm not a restrictive eater, but, limiting your high carb, high sugar, high sodium type snacks that you might be craving. Because those are the kinds of foods that are going to give us that nice little burst of energy. And then we're just going to crash after. And then the last thing, which is not food or, stress related, is just that you need to take 30 minutes for yourself every single day. So, I think as moms, and you said this just a few minutes ago, is that, we forget about ourselves, and we're so consumed with, feeding and changing and bathing and playing with and being moms and being wives and or partners and in, for your audience, being entrepreneurs or business women, that there's just no time to take care of yourself. And it's so easy for us to make that excuse where it's just like, yeah, well, I've got to run Johnny to soccer practice, and the baby needs a nap, and my husband's waiting for dinner, and, I have this meeting for work in 2 hours, and I just need to get it done. And that was something that my midwife, with my second daughter, shared with me early in my postpartum period, because at that point I had gone out on my own. And it also resonated with me during probably about a year after my first was born, because you feel so guilty for taking that 30 minutes for yourself. And you realize that when you do, you are such a better person for it. You can give more to your family. You can give more to your business. You can give more to your friends, and you feel more fulfilled yourself. And so taking that 30 minutes where you're phone free, where maybe you put on some music, maybe you drink a cup of coffee on the back patio, maybe you get your nails done, maybe you exercise a little bit or go for a walk without the baby, just to kind of reset, is so, so vital in the postpartum period. I mean, at any point in life, this is vital, right? But especially in the postpartum period where your needs come last and everybody else's needs come first.
I love that so much. While you're talking, a very important quote is coming to my mind, which made me realize these things that you're talking about. Because for me, it was super hard in the beginning. I was an entrepreneur from day one, and it was just the time. I was not even good at time management, so suddenly everything came at once that I had to learn, right? And I'm sure other people out there are feeling the same. They're feeling overwhelmed. So this quote that really changed my perspective of it is, it was going like this: like, being a mom is not your whole identity. It might be the best one, but it's not the whole one. And that is so true, to remember that before we had our baby, we had this huge identity that we loved about ourselves. And it might be, that we nourish that a little bit less now, but we should definitely take time to find some of that so that we can be in our best energy and be more for the other people. I loved, as you said, that when we actually take that 30 minutes, we feel how much better we are to everyone around us.
Right.
So that was just such a beautiful way to put it, and I really love those tips. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right, Arienne, I love that you're talking about preventive work and being proactive. That is actually why I am doing what I am doing, because I think that we don't have to get sick or feel bad before we can feel great. So for all the women out there who, it doesn't matter if they're already mothers and have been that for a long time, because it's never too late. But especially for women out there who are not mothers yet or are pregnant right now, what can they do proactively to, prepare their body and prepare for the postpartum period?
So I really I had a client recently who came to me. She's newly pregnant with her first child, and she is not experiencing any type of symptoms, but she wanted to proactively come in and be assessed, and really wanted the ability to kind of shoot any questions that she had in my direction, because she's active, and she wants to continue working out. And I gave her so much kudos. Like I just I loved that she decided that that was important to her. And that is my goal, or one of my goals, is that women, you know, when they are looking to start a family, or when they are pregnant early in their pregnancy, you know, going through and seeing, you know, just preventatively, proactively, you know, a physio who specializes in, you know, women's health or pelvic health, that can not only just kind of touch on any issues that they may be noticing, but also then addressing, you know, simple things like posture, right? Because as our belly gets bigger, we tend to have this sway back posture where we're kind of hanging on our ligaments, which is not always, doesn't always feel good on our backs. So posture, our core strength. So, you know, positions that are good for pregnancy, positions that aren't, you know, there's a lot of information in, you know, in mainstream media that says, don't ever lay on your back when you're pregnant. Don't ever do this when you're pregnant. And there's so many nuances to that, right? Because for some people, yes, you shouldn't be on your back for prolonged periods of time. You shouldn't be doing X, Y, and Z exercises. But for a lot of people, it's perfectly safe. So, you know, taking advantage of the resources that are around you by, you know, seeking, you know, a PT referral for just a general screen where they can look and identify any areas that, even if they're not problematic now, may become problematic, and then coming up with a game plan of, you know, how can we address these things. And then the other thing is just being active, right? Because if you plan to grow a child inside, then, you know, being active, and that could be yoga and Pilates, that could be going on daily walks, that could be, you know, weightlifting or CrossFit or boot camps or whatever is up your alley, that's okay. But just being active and getting your body moving not only will help you have a much healthier lifestyle, but will help you throughout your pregnancy and throughout your recovery. So getting active, going and getting the advice of someone who knows what to look for either before or during pregnancy, and then having a resource available to you in that postpartum period. And you know, we can't be afraid to ask questions, right? Because so many women, you know, who have painful sex or who have a little bit of leaking, you know, I'm not incontinent, but, you know, when I sneeze or when I laugh, it happens. And it's like, but then yes, like that shouldn't be happening. So, you know, being open to dialoguing, because there's a lot of shame around our pelvic health. You know, people don't want to talk about vaginas, and people don't want to talk about abnormal poop patterns and, you know, things like that. It's not comfortable for us to discuss in a regular conversation. We're not going to talk to our mom about it in most cases. We're probably not going to talk to our best friends about it. If you have those kinds of best friends, more power to you. But being able to ask those questions and feel validated in your concerns is of the utmost importance, right? Because the second that someone says, oh, that's not really a problem, or, oh, we'll address it down the road when it gets really bad, means that, well, then it's not bad enough for me to take care of now. And so then we kind of sit on things and we say like, okay, well, you know, no, my doctor didn't tell me there was anything wrong, so I must be okay. And I think, you know, from a psychological standpoint, that can be really damaging.
Yeah, and I really, really love it. It's so highly valuable. And what you are saying with, you know, like when, how do I put it? When women say that, yeah, it's normal to pee on ourselves or whatever comes out of them, that either that is the case that they have accepted that, or that you know, they don't want to talk about it. So it's two extremes, instead of actually saying, okay, how would I love it to be? I feel like we are really walking with the norm too often, instead of asking, like stepping back and self-sourcing and asking, like, how would I love it to be, and then finding the solutions for that. So it kind of gets, yeah, exactly, it gets back to what we started with in the beginning, and that is why it is such an important work that you're doing. And I'm so grateful that we are able to voice this, and I really hope that people listening who are finding themselves in these challenges, or you know, just also preventively wanting to work with their body, that they reach out for help. In if they would like, you know, some consultation or anything, is there a way to contact you? Are you doing anything online as well, or
Yeah, so I operate, you know, within Miami, I'm in Miami, Florida. So within Miami, Florida, I see clients out of a gym as well as within homes. So it's a very concierge style practice, because I like the feel of dedicating time to my clients, where I'm not focused on 4 other people at the same time. And then I also do virtually. So, you know, the pandemic really kind of kicked everything into high gear, virtually speaking. So I do have availability virtually where I can do consultations, and more of a wellness screen where we can address any issues and kind of tackle game plans as far as what are your goals and what would make you happy, because these are not symptoms that we should, yes, they're common. You know, a lot of women postpartum will have some type of urinary incontinence or fecal incontinence. But with that said, you know, we should never have to feel like that is all that we can be. And so, you know, coming up with a game plan of, you know, what can we do to kind of tackle these issues? And what are the resources that are available to you is kind of the flow of how my virtual sessions will run.
Beautiful. I will ask you to send me your information and put it in the show notes, and then people can contact you. I really encourage you guys to do that, because Arienne really knows what she talks about. That is awesome. So I have a last question for you, which I ask all my podcast guests before we end the show. And the question is, imagine that everything that you've ever done, anything you've ever written, or any session you've ever given, or anything you ever recorded, anything that you have ever created was burned, was destroyed, and there's nothing left of it. And now I would give you, I know it can sound so sad, but there is something good coming out of this question. I would give you a paper and a pen now, and I would ask you to put down 3 things that you would like to give on to the world the day that you're not here anymore. That is what you would leave everyone with. What would those 3 things be?
Oh man, you'll put on the spot. Okay. I think the first thing that I would say is be selflessly selfish. So, you know, prioritizing yourself and your, you know, your mental and physical and emotional well-being, because, you know, as we said just a few minutes ago, if I cannot take care of me, then I cannot take care of the people around me. And the only way that I can help the immediate people in my life and, you know, the extended world around me is to first take care of myself. And I think we're not always raised that way. So I think that's number 1. Number 2, be kind to the people around you, because you never know, you know, the struggles that people are going through. And I think that, you know, something as simple as a smile or a compliment or, you know, a kind gesture can go a really long way in someone's life. And, you know, especially right now in the midst of a global pandemic, when everybody is just very on edge and very stressed, and everybody has a story right now. I think it is 100% so important to just be kind, and not forget that there are people that are just as stressed, if not more stressed than what we are. And I think that goes back to number one, which is if you can take care of yourself, then you can give that to other people. And then number three is, your movement heals, so moving your body is one of the best ways that you can honor it. And no matter how much surgery or pills or other things that you can do to alter your body, you only get one. So you cannot have a body transplant. And we owe it to ourselves and to our children and to the people around us to, take care of ourselves and to move and to be active, because as humans, that is, what we're meant to do. So even if that is just taking a quick walk around the block, just getting yourself moving and not forgetting that there is a whole world out there. And sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day is just it's not it. We gotta move.
We gotta move. I'm so happy I put you on the spot, because there was 3 beautiful things that I would not have wanted to be different. Thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you so much for being here, Arienne.
Thank you for having me, Jackie.
It was really awesome, and I cannot wait to air the show. And another thing, I didn't know you were in Miami. My parents-in-law, they're living in Miami as well. I'll jump by next time I'm there, and COVID will
If you're
allow
ever
it.
in town, you have to let me know, and we'll definitely do coffee or lunch or something.
Definitely. All right, Arienne.
Awesome.
Have a beautiful last 2 weeks of December. Enjoy Christmas. Enjoy the holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays and Happy New Year.
Yeah, you too. And we'll talk, right?
All right.
Bye, Arienne.
Bye. Thanks so much, Jackie.